Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jessica Chu, and I am a member of the ICCT Communications team. Thank you for attending today's webinar on Driving a Green Future, a retrospective review of China's EV development and outlook for the future. This webinar is now being recorded, and we will be sharing the presentation materials on our event page next week. So please visit our website for updates. Today's webinar on China's EV development will be presented by Ms. Linji Jin. Linji is a researcher at the ICCT, and her work focuses on air quality and health impact assessment, electric vehicle policy, and deployment of zero-emission buses in the cities. But before we begin, Hui He, our China Regional Director, will give a brief overview of the topic. Now hand it to Hui.
Great, thank you, Jessica. I'm very happy to give you a quick overview of the context and motivation of the study. The study is a joint effort of the ICCT and China EV 100, a high-level think tank organization focusing on electric vehicle policies in China. The study, or the idea, was formed in 2019, and that year marked the 10th anniversary of China's landmark 10-city 1,000 electric vehicle pilot program, which was often considered as the official takeoff of China's EV development. Over the past decade, we have seen tremendous growth in EV market in China, benefiting from its multi-decade vision and strategies, and also decade-long strong policies, including the central subsidy, new energy vehicle mandate policies, and a wide range of innovative local policy measures, such as license plate auctions, road access and parking policies, etc. So on one hand, we hope the study can summarize and share China's EV development progress and key factors driving China's EV success with the other parts of the world. On the other, we believe there is still more to do in China, especially after President Xi announced China's carbon neutrality goal by 2060. So looking into the next decade, the China's EV vision is due for major upgrade in order to address the nation's pressing air quality challenges, as well as its long-term carbon commitment. Therefore, this study also tries to provide recommendations from our analytical findings, as well as from the interviews with some international experts on China's long-term EV strategies and targets in the future. Without further delay, I'll give the floor to Linji. I hope you enjoy this presentation and welcome your feedback and questions afterwards.
All right, thank you, Hui. First of all, thank you everyone for your interest in this topic. In this presentation, I'll introduce some of the findings in the new joint report by the ICCT and China EV 100. As Hui mentioned, in just a decade, China has become the world's largest electric vehicle market. Today, the country accounts for half of the world's electric cars and more than 90% of electric buses. This webinar will first compare China's electric vehicle market, industry value chain, battery technology evolution, and competitiveness with other leading EV markets. Then we'll highlight the key national strategies and plans that led to this incredible growth of China's electric vehicle market. The presentation will also shed light on what China can offer to the rest of the world in the global transition to zero-emission transportation, and things China should consider in order to sustain its EV success going forward. We primarily focus on light-duty electric vehicles in this report. This report has many more useful information than I can cover in a 15-minute presentation, so feel free to check it out on our website. In the first part, we'll look at China's electric vehicle development and global progress towards electrification. First, let's look at electric vehicle market development in terms of sales and electric vehicle market share. In 2020, the electric vehicle market continues to grow despite the economic downturn and impact of the pandemic. Global light-duty electric vehicle sales reached 3 million in 2020, and its market share rose to 4.2%. China continues to be the largest EV market, with cumulative light-duty electric vehicle sales in the past decade, representing nearly half of the world's total. The annual light-duty EV sales were 1.2 million in 2020, with a corresponding market share of 6.2%. However, Europe superseded China in light-duty EV penetration in 2020. Light-duty EV sales in Europe more than doubled in 2020 and reached 11% on average in market penetration. The average market share in December even exceeded 20%. The tremendous electric vehicle growth in Europe is driven by the tightened CO2 emission standards for new cars and COVID-19 stimulus policies. Another way to put countries' progress in perspective is by examining the leading auto companies in terms of electric vehicle sales. This figure shows manufacturers that have reached 200,000 cumulative light-duty electric vehicle sales globally from 2010 to 2019. The colors of bars represent where the manufacturer headquarters are for each model. These 13 manufacturers account for over 70% of total electric vehicle sales in the past decade. Of the top 13 manufacturers, 4 were Chinese brands. These are BYD, BAIC, Geely, and SAIC. Other regions have 2 to 3 brands that make the top 13, and these are the United States-based Tesla and General Motors, Europe-based BMW, Volkswagen, and Renault, and Japan-based Nissan, Mitsubishi, and Toyota. Globally, Tesla is still the leader with over 900,000 cumulative sales, and BYD ranked second after Tesla with over 750,000 cumulative sales. One major component in the electric vehicle supply value chain is batteries, and manufacturers and countries are increasingly aware of the importance of gaining a competitive advantage in this realm. This figure depicts the historical light-duty electric vehicle sales by battery supplier headquarters. From 2012 to 2015, Japan was by a wide margin the world's largest producer of battery packs for electric vehicles. The share of electric vehicle sales by Chinese battery suppliers has then grown from less than 10% in 2012 to approximately half of total sales since 2017. Meanwhile, the share of electric vehicles with Japanese batteries has dropped in recent years due to the strong growth in China's domestic electric vehicle market, which is dominated by batteries made by Chinese companies. 4 major battery suppliers, Panasonic, Kettle, LG Chem, and BYD, represent nearly 80% of all battery production. If we drill down to battery technologies, we know that cost control, performance, and safety concerns are constantly pushing innovation. This figure shows the share of new electric vehicle sales by battery chemistry. There is a clear trend of the increasing share of NMC and NCA batteries over the years, which are shown as green and yellow in the bar chart. And NMC is lithium nickel manganese cobalt oxide battery, and NCA is lithium nickel cobalt aluminum oxide battery. So you can see that nickel-rich cathode chemistries are expected to capture a larger market share as consumers push for more range and power. LFP, or lithium iron phosphate batteries, has been a major player in China before 2015. However, driven by a subsidy program that favors higher energy density, China has been gradually shifting to NMC batteries. One other thing that is worth noting is that the growth in NCA batteries in the United States is primarily driven by Tesla, with considerable uptake after 2017 due to the release of the more affordable Model 3. So we've been focusing on national level progress so far. However, many cities are leading in the transition to electric mobility. This slide shows leading EV city markets and their future goals. Figure on the left shows cumulative electric car sales through 2019 in the 25 metropolitan areas worldwide with the highest totals. These sales are shown as bars, and we also show 2019 EV share of new car sales as scatter plots on the right axis. 40% of world's electric car sales were in these 25 leading cities, 14 of which are from China. Of the 13 major cities shown with more than a 10% 2019 electric car shares, the 7 are in China. Many of the leading electric vehicle cities outside of China, especially European cities, have set ambitious EV sales share targets and developed phase-out plans for internal combustion engine cars. The figure on the right illustrates EV sales share through 2019 for 7 of the leading EV cities with future year goals, which range from sales shares of 25% in 2025 in Liuzhou, China, including passenger and commercial vehicles, to sales share of 100% as early as 2022 in Oslo. Only one Chinese city has set an electrification target beyond 2020. During China's 13th five-year plan, cities like Shenzhen, Tianjin have set EV goals. The 14th five-year plan will be an important venue for cities to consider a ramp-up of targets. Evidently, China has seen incredible growth in its EV development in the past decade. So how did China do it? Our new report reveals that China's success has been built on a foundation that includes a clearly articulated vision, consistent planning, coordinated action, city-level leadership, and the continued adaptation of policy tools to meet the changing market. This policy architecture is illustrated in the figure here. First, we have the top-level national strategies and plans. In early 2000s, China's 10th five-year plan established the 863 project, signaling the birth of China's early EV strategy. Since then, developing electric vehicles becomes a national strategy to revitalize the nation's auto industry. Industrial plans follow the national five-year plans and strategies and set incremental EV development goals. These include the goal of 500,000 electric and hybrid vehicles by 2012. 5 million electric vehicles on the road by 2020, and 20% EV market share by 2025. These plans also identified policies and funding required to meet those goals. On the third level of the pyramid, we have central policies that grew from the macro level plans above. These include the 10 cities, 1,000 vehicles pilot projects, as well as vehicle and infrastructure subsidies, tax breaks, sales mandate, and government procurement requirement. With these national level policies, local governments developed a range of policies tailored to their local conditions, including license plate incentives, road access privileges, parking incentives, and more. Now that we've looked back at some of China's electric market growth in the past decade, we'll share some insights on China's role in future global EV development. First of all, China can continue to be the powerhouse of the global EV industry through its strong battery production capacity. This figure shows the estimated announced battery production capacity in gigawatt hours from 2019 to 2025. Based on industry announcements, future global battery production capacity will grow by a factor of 4 compared to 2019, reaching 1,000 gigawatt hours in 2025. China is the leader in battery cell production capacity and is likely to remain so in the future. We can see from the figure that China provided a third of global battery production capacity in 2019, and this share is expected to stay stable through 2025. China, Europe, South Korea, and United States, Japan, which account for 80% of the total capacity, are expected to continue dominating the market. Second, China could play a greater role in the globalized EV industry. China has been a leading market and producer, but is relatively self-sufficient and isolated as there are low numbers of imports and exports. This figure shows how light-duty electric vehicles were deployed globally from 2010 to 2019, according to where sold on the vertical axis and produced on the horizontal axis. It illustrates that regarding brand competitiveness, Chinese electric car brands have not been widely embraced by the global market. Within the light-duty vehicle segment, China's electric vehicle strategy has primarily focused on satisfying the domestic market, and there has been little emphasis on exporting. China exported less than 1% of its light-duty electric vehicle production, and that is small compared to other major markets. Europe exported 17%, and the United States exported 1/3 of its EV production, while Japan and South Korea exported over 2/3 of its production. This implies there is large potential for Chinese manufacturers to enhance their global competitiveness and play a greater role in the globalized EV industry. Despite all the early progress, the challenge ahead is immense. Many governments have air quality, climate change mitigation, and industrial development goals to move to 100% electric vehicles, and China should align with other leading markets in its ambition and long-term vision. This slide shows the progress through 2019 and the announced long-term goals for vehicle electrification. As shown, most of these markets are still at early development stage, well, except Norway. But more than a dozen regions, mostly European countries, have proposed timelines to transition to zero-emission vehicles within the next 3 decades. China and other major Asian auto markets, including Japan, South Korea, and India, do not yet have an official commitment to full electrification. In its recently released midterm industrial plan, China announced the 20% electric vehicle target by 2025, but it lacks long-term goals to set a signal for its industry and market. Continued support and efforts will be needed to remove barriers and achieve more ambitious long-term goals. So finally, we come to some of the insights and reflections from the analysis. We've actually talked about this throughout the presentation. The first one is global EV market continues to grow despite the economic downturn and impact of the pandemic. And the most substantial growth was evidenced in Europe, driven by a suite of long-term decarbonization goals and nearer-term regulatory standards. Secondly, China has cultivated the world's largest EV market and battery producer, representing about half of global light-duty EV cells and battery cell production. And this is a result of its strategies and policies and different incentives programs. And third, looking into the future, China can play a greater role in the global EV market. An updated vision for full electrification and a long-term plan to help achieve industrial air quality and climate change mitigation goals is needed. And it's time to consider 100% EV target, tightened EV sales requirement for cars and trucks, and more stringent vehicle efficiency and CO2 standards to collectively drive continued EV growth. So we have more insights and policy recommendations in our full report. These are just some selected ones. So that's the end of my presentation. Here are the links to our full report in both English and Chinese versions. We have a lot more resources on our website. I also want to take the time to acknowledge our full research team for their work in putting together this report. I also want to thank the expert advisors and our colleagues at EV100 for their valuable contributions. Jessica, do you want to take over the Q&A session?
All right, then. I wanted to say thank you to everyone for participating in today's presentation. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any further questions. Again, we will be sharing the presentation slides and related materials on the event page, so please check out our website for the updates. Lastly, remember to follow us on social media. Our handle is @theICCT. And thank you again, and we hope to see you soon. Take care. Bye.